I'm Corrin from GraceNotesStitchers, and today I'm recording for you the 4th installment in how to stitch a HAED. So I am going to show you how I stitch a HAED. So this is a video that I was really hoping I would not have to make. So I ended up having to make the pockets. So for me, 2 or 3 inches doesn't make a difference. So from now on, with my full coverages, I'm definitely only going with a 2-inch border because at the top 3 inches didn't work. So what I'm going to do, I made these pockets. Did not take me really long. So all I did was sewed a 5-inch strip that is the width of my bars, and then I sewed into it a pocket. And there we go, the pocket. I serge all my edges so that I don't have to hem things, because I really stink at sewing. So if I don't have to hem anything, I don't. So I serge all 4 edges and then I sew the pocket. So would I sew these? Absolutely. But you have to understand there will never be any hems. Like, it's gonna look kind of rough. I don't know if you can see that. Like, I can cut that off, but it will be a serged edge and not a hemmed edge. So if you like pretty things, that is not me. Okay, I have to stick my needle back in here so that I can do this. So if you didn't see, I just put the scroll rod through the little pocket. Now, oh, I forgot a step, which I will go do now before I put it on the rods. I'm going to take the rods back off. I actually have to sew my fabric onto the pocket. So I sew it down here, and I'm just going to use a long straight stitch. And I use my machine because it's a lot quicker than doing it by hand. And then when I go to take it out, you just snip and pull. All right. Well, I actually did not turn off my video, so I'm just going to leave it play, and I was going to talk to you for a moment because I was coming to put it back on for you. So I'm pinning so that I know where to sew. And something that I always have to remember is I really could go with a 4-inch instead of a 5-inch. Because again, that's kind of a waste of my white fabric. And if you couldn't see, I'll bring it up to you. It's a patterned white. Why? What did I say before? White is so boring for me. It's not that I can't stitch on white. I don't want to stitch on white. And what I'm doing right now is just lining it up to make sure, you know, that when it goes on my scroll rods, that I can get it tight while it's straight. So I'm pinning it to the white. Put the white on here. And yeah, you can put it as close to the pockets as you want. Now, the one thing is, like where your stitch is, you want to make sure that that's not over top of the white, because you'll end up stitching to it. But I am going to give myself a generous amount up here because I know that I had struggles before. And I don't know if you could see. Okay, so if I was sewing this like sewing it like as a grime guard, I would have switched to white thread for both the sewing and the serging. I'm using pink. That's our signature color for our GraceNotesFabrics. So that's actually what's loaded in my serger. And if anyone has ever used a serger before, it is a bear to try to get your threads changed. It's really not fun. And then, so that's the one thing. The other thing is, I don't care. And then, I don't care if it's pink. It's not gonna bother me. It's just a pocket. And I have purple already loaded into my sewing machine. But again, it doesn't really matter because it's not seen. And if I was making a grime guard, it wouldn't be seen either, but you know, you want things to look nice. And to me, pink and purple, my two favorite colors, and to me it really does not matter. All right, so I'll take this in. Looks good. I'll sew it, and then I'll be back. Okay, so let's do this again. This is the front. Put my rods in. So now I have two lines. I have the line here and I have the line here. And then we'll put it down in. Oh, I left a pin. Oh, I left a whole bunch of pins. That's the way I sewed it on. All right, I got this all out. It's actually a lot easier to put these in with this rather than just putting your fabric straight in. So, I mean, when I can, I prefer to make the pockets. It's just kind of a pain in the rear end because you can't just start your project. I mean, you can, but I don't like to stitch in hand. Or use Q-snaps when I can't, when I don't have to. Okay, I'm gonna line these up. So I had my other video, if you want to know how to put it straight in, like if you have a good amount of border, or if you're more clever than I am with the 3-inch border. Alright, so I rolled up my scrolls, rolled up my fabric, and then the magic happens. Just tighten the rods. These are pretty big. Let's turn it up, put it the right way up. Ooh, before I do too much. I don't like when I do that. When you have too much of this, because if you actually really tap on it, you can actually flatten it, which I've done. I've ruined the tips. I mean, I don't know if there's a reason that you shouldn't, but all right. I'm gonna say these are my 20-inch sidebars, 20-centimeter sidebars. I'm sorry, because they do seem kind of big, but I get this as tight as I want because I like it to be drum tight. There we go. That'll be awesome when I start stitching, which for you guys will be like a second. There you are. I'm tripping. But there you go, all set up. All right, so this is very new for me. I have never done a stitch with me. I do not have all the proper equipment, so this is going to be kind of a learning lesson for both of us. I do have a special one on order, just not here yet. So I'm going into my purl to show you what I'm working on. I'm working on the color that I have loaded. So I'm gonna put this here because I know you could see the stitches. So I'm going to highlight in purple what I'm going to stitch right now. So I'm going to stitch here. I'm skipping. So if you're looking for like the perfect diagonals, my videos are definitely not your way to go. So I stitch in a 10 by 10 grid. Let me zoom out a little bit. Sorry, let me zoom out a little bit. Okay, so let's go back to what I'm working on. So that means I'm going to actually stitch all the way over to here, even though it's outside of my 10 by 10. So I'm going to stitch all of these. And because it's only 3 stitches, I am going to go ahead over to here. Stitch these and then I'll come back. I don't mind skipping 3 or 4 stitches when I am working on HAEDs because I'm doing such small count that it's very little that I'm stitching. And then I will concentrate on here. And I'll just kind of show you as I go. And so by watching Teresa Little Stitcher, she then parks under here. She always goes under. Unless there is no stitches in the 10 by 10 underneath, then she'll park to the right. But there are stitches, so I will park right here in this spot underneath. Good, my purple are gone. And I highlight as I go, as I stitch, so that I don't make mistakes. So I'm skipping that one. And I mean, obviously you're not stitching the same HAED as me, so it's going to look a little different. And then 1, 2, 3, 6. I'm gonna go over and do 6 more. So I do not do a perfect diagonal. I'm not completely cross country, but if the stitches are nearby, I'm going to go ahead and stitch them because I like keeping my thread on my needle as long as possible. I really just do not like to change my needle or change colors. 2, 3, 4. I am using 2 strands. I'm on 28 count and I'm doing over 1 and I am doing tent style. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, skipping 3. So if you want to do full X's, I would highly recommend 1 strand, which again is not, I mean, I love the look of it. Like when I'm doing 36 and 40 count, I do 1 strand. I do full X's, but not full coverage. I always tell people I will never live long enough to stitch all my full coverages. And now I will come back and stitch across backwards. I do all my stitches bottom left to top right. This would be the first leg of my X's if I was doing whole X's. And I am almost done with my Mulan Mini. I will be finishing that up in December. And that was completely in tent. I'll mark my stitches off. All the way over to there. 2, 3, 4, 5. I do not use graded fabric because as long as I'm working in the 10 by 10s, mostly, I shouldn't be making mistakes. Okay, so I'm down to my 3rd row already. And you saw that I skipped that stitch right there, the 2nd stitch. That's because it's a different color. And as soon as I finish these in this first 10 by 10, then I will go ahead and that's the next color I'm going to do. Now, the next one is asking me to skip 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces, which I told you I don't mind 4 always, but it's in the next 10 by 10, so there's 0 reason for me to go grab it. So we'll mark off this row and come backwards. 3 and 1. Everybody does stitch a little bit different. People ask how I stitch HAEDs, so this is kind of your insight into how I work. Left to right and then right to left on the next row. Kind of like it when I'm using over dye floss. except that I do full X's that are there. Whoops, and I just got off my needle. I'm using a Bowen size 28 needle. My favorite is John James Petite, but I don't know that my petites are size 28, besides the fact they're all in use. Every time I start a new project, I start with a new needle. When I lose it, I grab one from my stash of used needles. When do I replace my needle is when it starts to feel a little rough. You can kind of feel it and hear it, and it will start to fray your threads a bit. That's when you say, I'm done with this. And I already forgot if I was going left or right, so I just wiggle my thread. And then I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, to the right by 1. I normally, when I'm stitching, I'll either watch FlossTube, mostly listen to it, and I can put it on my TV, so I like that. I can't speed it up that way, but that's okay. Or I watch some of my shows. Right now, the girls and I are binging Criminal Minds. We're just waiting for the next season to come from the library. I won't be doing this for long today because I'm actually stitching before I teach. And that's actually pretty unusual for me to have made the time to do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Usually I don't stitch until evening, which is after 9 p.m. for me. So to have daylight to stitch is kind of weird. And this is my stitchy spot. It's not my normal recording, so I apologize. I'm probably sounding very different because we kind of have an open floor plan in our house. My kitchen and dining room are kind of connected. There's like a breakfast bar area. So there's only 2 stitches here in these 2 rows. And because I'm not going to zigzag just for this one stitch, I go ahead and do that. So we have, yeah, the breakfast bar and a little wall in between the kitchen and dining room. Other houses in our neighborhood actually have no divider. They'll have an island, which we don't have. But I like our breakfast bar and the fact that our dining room has an actual real room. That's kind of what sold us on this house. And we have lived here for quite a few years. Okay, I have no needle minder, so please bear with me. Does this needle minder have a back? No. Well, let's see here. Wow. Well, there you go. This is my frosted pumpkin one from Animal Almanac. I'll put my needle there, and then so I've marked off all the stitches that I've used. You can see them in purple. Check mark them. Whoops, I didn't mark them all. So I've done 53 stitches, and then this is where I parked my thread. I came down to the 10 by 10 below it, and I can actually double tap it. Let's see if it works. Ah, I had it set for double tap. Otherwise you tap it more park thread, more park thread in lower left corner. Huh. Maybe I needed to set that. If I do, it's here. Settings, parking color, I have it set as blue. Highlights, lines, stitch history. Oh, shortcuts. Double clicking on the chart. Oh, here we go. Double click and mark up. Park thread in lower left. I don't know if you have to do that with every project. There we go. And then I'll just hit clear. Oop, not clear. Prog. or not parked, sorry. All right, talking in circles here. So my next color, oops, search, that is going to be 3041. So that's my next 10 by 10. I am not going to go all the way there, so I'm going to go down here, okay? And please forgive me, because since this is so saturated, I am just going to continue. So I'll probably do a whole lot more tomorrow with it, with you all. But for now, this is the color that I am going to get a lot done in. As soon as I see my color, 3041. Because this is where I say I'm kind of a cross-country stitcher by heart, by nature. I'm not going to, what I will do is I will stop when I run out. Let me throw this over here in my cart. So when if I'm in the next 10 by 10, I will stop when my thread runs out. I won't keep going. So that's kind of my stopping point. That kind of helps me to stay on task. All right, so what is my setup here today? You all do have to realize I have been stitching, sorry for all the noise there. I've been stitching since I was a little girl. I've collected things since I was a teenager. So I've got lots of years of stitching here. I got my tub with all of my dividers for my colors. I got that when I was a teenager. And then I filled up my colors, you know, back when DMC was 6 for $1, I would buy tons. So I pulled my thread. Here's my extra. It's going in the 3041 spot. And I even did that for my mom for Christmas one year. I went and got all of her colors. And I actually threw all of mine in my stocking and told my husband that was what he was giving me. So that was fun. But so I got all of my colors. So I was married when I got all of my colors. And then I'm trying to think what came first. I probably ordered the Omnique scroll, my first. No, I ordered my Lowry first. I probably ordered them at the same time and the Lowry came first. Because Omnique did take a little bit. But I got this because it was hurting to hold my Q-snaps in my hand, and that's due to my arthritis. I have psoriatic arthritis. If you don't know what that is, it's very similar to rheumatoid arthritis. It's an autoimmune disease. It's never cured, but you can go into remission. I have never been in remission since I have been diagnosed, so it's kind of rough. But anyway, it is, I apologize, you're hearing the knocking of my washer and my dryer. I know it looks like we live glamorous lives, but laundry has to be done sometime. And then, so we looked into what stands, and I was looking at Lowry versus Case Creation, and I was watching Christine stitch all the things. She has an excellent video on the differences between the two. And she did say that the newer ones are not made as well as the older ones. She received hers as a gift from somebody. They were getting rid of all of their cross-stitch supplies. Just gave her everything they owned, which pretty awesome. So she was the very first floss tuber I ever saw. And she has just such a great style and way of talking that I started watching her floss tube, and I went back and I binged and I watched every single one. And then I thought it was Sammy J, but I'm starting to think it was somebody else. They were unboxing a HAED. So that would have been the second one, but I didn't go through and watch all of theirs. Trying to think who was next. But with Colleen, I've gone through and binge watched all of Trees a Little Stitcher. We got caught up on all of her and all of Janet Jabber. Others that are newer, we've been just watching from the beginning, like Crystal Rowe and Hannah Dowling. I think we've seen all of Lydia from Lydia's Leisurely Stitching. She is stitching my supersize HAED. She is doing it a regular size one. It's called A Place of Her Own. And she's doing that not as a super size, but because she's doing on Ada, I think they're going to be roughly the same size. So that's pretty cool. But when she took it to StitchCon and I got to see how big it was, I was like, ugh. But she's doing an amazing job. Yeah, I just stitched straight through my thread. Oh, goodness gracious, people. And I knew that was going to happen, which is why I pulled it over to the magnet. All right, so I got my Lowry, I got my Omnique frames, and then I think it was a year later, I was really struggling to see, and that's how I ended up with my magnifier. This is a daylight magnifier. I have a review on my FlossTube channel. I can't think of what all it's called. My lamp I'm using is an OttLight, and it has the tablet stand attached to it. My original daylight lamp that I've had, oh my goodness, at least 15 years, cord is broken. It's what we actually use for our light source when we make our videos in my craft room. But the switch on it's broken, so I have it plugged into a surge protector. And yes, I am crossing off every row so that I don't lose my place. So we just turn the surge protector on and off, and we don't click the button. Because sometimes when you click the button it turns on, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it takes 20 tries. So it's better just to use the surge protector. So when my daughter, we gave, I don't know if it was her birthday present or Christmas, we gave her a new OttLight for her birthday is 4 days before Christmas. And my husband was like, oh, don't you want one like that? I went, no, I'm good. And then I was on Facebook and I saw the one with the tablet holder. I went, now that would be amazing. And my son got me this Kindle, I think it's 2 years ago now, for Christmas, for Pattern Keeper. And I, again, through Facebook had found Pattern Keeper. And the day I found it, I downloaded the free trial and I used my husband's little teeny tiny Samsung Galaxy phone that he no longer used. I was like, this is amazing. So I knew immediately that I would enjoy using Pattern Keeper. And so after that, I started with the Kindle and digital patterns. I now will even scan in some of my paper patterns and use Xodo, Xodo, as a PDF reader, just so that I can stay with my Kindle. I find that a whole lot faster than picking up my paper pattern and highlighting. And so my daylight lamp magnifier here is actually attached to the light accessory bar on my Lowry. So even when I'm not using my Lowry clamp for my scroll rods, I'm always using my Lowry. And I have my first 100 stitches done. It's pretty cool. And then I'm using a Dubco that I just got. And I have PayPal payment plans. So, you know, I take 6 months to be, I can take 6 months to pay it off. So that's really nice with no interest. So that is actually how I afford some of my bigger purchases. And I think I haven't had it for 6 months, but I ordered it 6 months ago, maybe 7 months ago, and I was able to just pay it off. I just finished paying it off, so that's pretty cool. And then I have a cart to my right where I got at Michael's that holds my frog for my scissors, my Ort jar, and that's actually where I put my kit. And I'm gonna move a bit because my arms are hurting sitting this way. So I was adjusted a little wrong, that I had my daughter actually sitting in my chair, and I was trying to have her, I was adjusting the camera to her and my stand and everything else. So I was a little on the difficult side, because she's not exactly the same height, and you don't know how it feels. So my arms were getting a little tired being up in the air like that. This is so much better. But I really only have about 10-15 minutes left because my first student is at 3:30 and it's 2:57. So as you can see, I can get like a nice chunk of color done because I'm not doing the whole full 10 by 10. I mean, I am, but I'm not. I'm gonna keep going till this thread runs out. And then I'll just mark off everything that I can. Now, if I run out of a chunk and I still have threads left, I will then park. But I don't need it to look all nice and neat when I stop, that I go, oh look, I got my whole 10 by 10 done. And I'm actually going into the next 10 by 10 for one square because I'm not going to just leave that for another day when it's touching. So I can guarantee you that if you stitch like this, you will not have lines. Some people say, you know, when you do your 10 by 10 square, you see straight lines. You won't see it this way. Or if you do page by page, you'll see page lines. And some will even say they see perfect diagonal lines. Yeah. Mine are never all parked at the same place. You can see this is actually the second 10 by 10 square. And I'm well below it. But I am definitely more concerned about lines. And just, I don't know, keeping going. I'm not fast. I mean, again, that could be the arthritis. I am not fast at threading my needle, even if I use a needle threader. So I admire the people who are, though, and who do those diagonals. Oh my gosh, when I see the diagonals, I think they're beautiful. I picked Pearl. I already forget who the designer is. Because it's my birthstone. And I would, it's just one I would really like to have done, but I love the colors in it. If I do well with it, I'm thinking about doing the emerald for my husband. And they have all of our birthstones, so I could definitely do those. But after I bought all my threads and kit this whole thing up, I found out they make it for diamond art, and I think it's like $35 for the canvas. So if I don't love stitching this, I may have, or if it takes me forever, I may have my daughter do it in diamond art. I found a gorgeous Snow White, one that I have been in love with for quite a while. They have that in diamond art. So I asked her for Christmas if I could buy her that, and she would make it for me. So as long as she can follow a canvas without having to look at a pattern, she's okay with that. But I will have to make sure she gets all of the drills that she needs. And something about HAED is they do square drills. And I had bought her the entire DMC set of drills, but in round. Okay, so one more row and my thread will be out, and then I will change color again. So you most likely will never see 10 stitches from me. Whoop. 10 parked threads in the same 10 by 10. I mean, it does happen occasionally. I mean, my heroes and heroines, oh my gosh. There's parked threads everywhere, but I love that project. And as long as you're parking on Pattern Keeper, it's very, very easy to keep track. I'm thinking it is Teresa Little Stitcher. She did a HAED video series before Pattern Keeper or before she used it. And if she just used a PDF reader, she would use a different color for that stitch to park it. All right, so I have time. I am going to go up and do color number 3. So I left that out because with my Debco, it's so easy. I just flip it and end my thread. I do know how to end on the front. I'm just not real good at it. But since I can just easily flip, I do. And then I'll put my orts into my box until it gets full, and then I move it to my ort jar. Okay, my next color is, because I finished that entire row, I'll start right here, and that color is 451. We'll start first to see if it's on my cards. Now, if I was sitting here for like an hour and a half to 2 hours, oh, that's for my box. I would put Scotch tape on the back and tape them up to my light bar. 451 is not here, which means it's in my box. And in my box, I have them in number order, not color order, so that I can very easily pull. I pull out a whole arm's length. I apologize, I bumped the camera. I pull an arm's length snippet. I'll put it right back where I got it. Still number order. Oops, let me flip back. I'll pull out one thread. And then the rest will go back into, oops, sorry. I'll go back into the card. I have to make these cards for all the new projects I'm starting. Although some that don't have like 60 colors or more, like this, I forget about the floss drops. I have the little things to make tags for my floss drops. Carla, Craft Addict K, has a great tutorial on how to make floss drops, because my daughter makes floss ring bling, or whatever you want to call it, floss jewelry, and you know, helps to keep it fancy, makes it look pretty, keeps them all together in a circle. All right, here we go. Color 3. So I only have one part thread, even though I did 2 colors, And I think maybe that's another reason I do what I do. Keeps the parked threads under control. Now with Mulan, once I got around all of my parked threads, oh goodness gracious, like this one, let's say I had it a little bit more surrounded, I would go back to that thread. I didn't do that Mulan in a 10 by 10 at all, but I did make some significant mistakes in her, so I am not using that method anymore, which was a lot of cross country. So here you can see I'm not straying too far. I'm not counting more than 3 stitches. And I'm definitely marking off as I go. Less room for error. Now, let's say I put a color in the wrong spot. I don't find it till later. If it's a pretty similar color, that's fine. I don't get all bent out of shape. Because a lot of times it's just shading. Now Mulan, oh my goodness. Oh, I can't even tell you the mistakes I made in that one. I had the wrong color. I had to, twice I had the wrong color. I had to rip them out because it was very, very obvious. Okay, so that was all I had of that in here. So I am going to go ahead down to the next 10 by 10. And since there's more in the same 10 by 10, and since I've already stitched all of this, I'm going to, it's not going to mess me up. I'm not going to go too many stitches away, because that's what I'm more, worried about. I'm going to go ahead down and I'm going to do these 4 stitches. And I'll show you where they are. Right here, these 4 stitches. Now let's look here. Do I have more in the one below it? I do. So I am not going to go, you know what? I'm going to go ahead over there, because that way when I'm doing that, I can stay straight there, because these are all alone. So let me get that thread out. I was going to go down there. But there's no sense in me zigzagging all over the place if I don't have to when I do the 10 by 10 that's next to this one. So I'm going to do the next 4, that little block of 4, and then I'm going to park in the 10 by 10 underneath of that. So I'm actually parking down into the 3rd one. And again, that is because I'm already there basically. It's going to be right underneath of this last stitch here. Now I am not going to count over, because in case I did make a mistake with where I parked it, I can pull it out. So I'm going to mark all those off. I'm going to double tap that I parked right there. Believe it or not, I'm at 197 stitches. Now I'm going to work my way across here. It wouldn't matter if I went down or across, because it is the same thing. I'm going to go into 316. So now I have 2 parked threads. Let's look to see if 316 is in my cards. Nope. So in my cards are the colors that I knew I only needed 1 or 2 strands of, because I used the stitch count off of the pattern. And I got them out of my Annie's Keepers. Or if I had cones, I have like 6 cones, I think. So if I have them on a cone, I went ahead and cut them off of a cone. There's the thread I'm going to use. And then we'll put this in. And then yes, I take the length I'm working with. I don't wind it back. I find this takes a lot less time, because then I'm not searching for numbers. I'm not winding and unwinding. And again, on Mulan, I would wind and unwind. I would lay the color out that I was working on, and then when I was finished with that color, I would wind it back up. There we go. So we're already at color 4. Okay, and I'm going to start at the top and go down. Let me see if there's any in the 10 by 10 below. There are not. So this is actually one, again, the way my crazy brain works, there's not any down here except for this one. So I'm going to stitch these, and then I'm going to come up. I'm going to kind of cross country these so that I can get over to here and stitch into that block. And then I will park. I'll park here. I won't park here because I don't want to go too far away. So again, I try to keep do a significant amount of stitching at one time. Sorry, I look out the doors behind you all. Just keep an eye. This has been a student who's been virtual most of the time. But I've made requests the first lesson of the month if we could do in person to kind of catch mistakes. If you don't know, I teach piano. And teaching virtually is quite a challenge. It's doable. But things like sitting properly, even helping them know how hard or soft to hit a key sometimes is really kind of on the frustrating side through virtual. So just being able to catch up once a month. And I also play cross-stitch games on my iPad where I give my students rewards, and of course virtually I cannot do that. So she'll get to catch up on some of the games and earn some of the prizes that I give out. Last week was the first Monday of November, and they were not able to make it, so they said they would try to make it in person this week, which I'm hoping they do, but if they don't, it's okay too. And then the students right after, it's kind of cool, is their cousin, her cousin. Cousins, there's 2 of them. All right. 2, 3, 4. I do love these colors. I mean, they're not real purpley, but it's such a pretty misty purple, mauve-y color. I mean, this is definitely a mauve pink I'm doing, but the one I did before is so purpley. This is like the perfect pattern for me. So pearl is my birthstone. My fake stone, I guess, is alexandrite, which is cool because it's purple. But when you buy fine jewelry, if they don't have pearls, they suggest that you go with amethyst, which is my parents' birthstone. So my husband, years and years ago, over several years, got me an amethyst ring, earrings, necklace, and bracelet, tennis bracelet. You know, back when those were popular. And they're all amethyst, but supposed to represent my birthstone. But they're so much more casual, like that you can wear that versus pearls. Like, you feel like you can only wear pearls on certain occasions. At least I do. Now I don't even wear much jewelry at all. Skipped one by accident, that's what I'm doing here. Talking and stitching is interesting. I do Zoom every week with GraceNotesFabrics, and I'm doing one myself. It's little rooms, so it's not overwhelming, and then the rest of it's filling in for my frame because it's Tale as Old as Time by Story Stitches, and I already stitched the outlines of the castle, so now it's just a bunch of filling in, and a lot of it is solid color. So I stitched that on Zoom so that I can chat and not worry about color changes. But I will say, The one we got like this is so boring. It's like a cream color tan. So you can see I'm doing a nice little solid block here because I can tell that I'm not in the wrong place. But again, I'm not going to stray. Like, there is the same color way over here. I'm not doing that. That'll be in the third set going this direction. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops, I did 2 stitches too many. Oh, I'll just take it out. Yes. I get too excited while I'm talking. But you can see this just takes me time. And while I do these videos, I don't know what to talk about. I'm not a good Stitch With Me person, which is why I've never done Stitch With Me's. But since I'm kind of giving you instruction, that makes a whole lot more sense to me. So that's why I interrupt my talking to tell you all what I'm doing, because, you know, that's kind of the whole point of these videos. Now I'm working in the second block, 1, 2, to do this color because it's a good solid. When I'm done with this row, I will show you. I'm probably just going to leave this set up here during my lessons just because I can. It's so pretty. So I have one way over here, not doing it. That can be gotten when I go to that third set. We'll see if I finish my thread before it requires me to start carrying too much, how far I will end up going. If I feel like my threads are, you'll see me going on the other side of my needle or thread sometimes because I feel like my thread is getting twisted. Railroading is when you go through the thread, and I don't do that too often, except when I can't untwist it myself. And when you're doing half stitch, I don't find it, like I just go under it, and I find that untwists for me. Right, another row. By the way, I am well over 200 stitches. In this little amount of time. So 2 and then 3. So I did order a gooseneck on Amazon. We'll see if I can attach it to my light here in order to give you all a better view, because I'm hoping my hand is not constantly in your way. So I'm in the row now that I parked my thread. More stitches. down to the next row. Get the spot. What time is it here? Oh, this is going to be my last color. And if I have time to film tomorrow, I will. Because this is such a nice little piece. I would like to do some more on it this week. But I will go ahead and upload this video. Okay, so I am going to come over and catch this up here. One row above. These 3 stitches belong. 2, 3. Don't get mad at me. I'm going to go grab this little lonely stitch by itself. It goes up 2. 1, 2, 3. Because it's nowhere near connected to anything else. I'll come right back down and pick up where I left off. I already did that whole row. Space 2. Space 2. Space 3. Very itchy. So far, we're still lined up. That's what's important. Now, I have some that go over here, but I don't want to stray too far, so I'm going to go down here. 1, 2, 3. I'll grab them when I go over. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Then go up 2. 1, 2. So if something were to get off at this point, that's when I would start frogging. But we're still all nice and lined up. And there's a whole nother block over here. I don't know that I would even have enough to start over there. That's like a third one over. So I'm going to just keep coming back to where I was. Finishing up the block I'm in. I'd rather do that than start a whole new section. Since my plan is to just use up my thread. And then stop when I use up my thread. And unfortunately, I will be done for the day. Tonight, my last few lessons are family. There's a birthday in the family, so they canceled lessons. So when Colleen comes home tonight, and my last lesson's over at 6:30, we're going back over to Hobby Lobby. And I'm going to hopefully get some things put on to be stretched for framing. And then maybe run down to GraceNotesFabrics to get some fabric to make project bags. All right, I am done. I'm going to end this thread, and then I will just say I will see you next time, and happy stitching.